Hey everyone, this is Razador here, and welcome to another Pokemon solo run. But it's not just any solo challenge. Today's the day we're going to try and win not just the main story, but also the post-game rematches with a single Raticate. Looking at our base stats, we have almost base 100 speed, which we can definitely work with, and our attack isn't too bad. Kinda funny, we are slightly stronger in attack than a Snubbull. Everything else is mediocre. Next up are our moves, and starting with Quick Attack is nice. No need to worry about Tackle's 5% miss chance, and we get the same type of attack bonus. Raticate's moveset is actually inferior to Rattata's, though, since at level 20 we learn Scary Face, but Rattata instead gets Focus Energy. Scary Face is pretty useless for this Pokemon, but at least we get Hyper Fang very early. 80 base power with the same type attack bonus this early? You betcha. Speaking of moves. For TMs, Raticate's got some pretty sweet coverage. Shadow Ball will give us something solid to hit ghosts with. Iron Tail's got us covered for rock types. But what makes Raticate truly shine? This ability. Anytime we're burned, paralyzed, or poisoned, we'll gain a 50% boost to our physical attack. And even better, Guts bypasses Burn's attack debuff, so that's ideally what we want, but we won't be fighting anything that can burn us for a while. The early game shouldn't be too hard, but Brock may still present a challenge, being that his team does resist all of our attacks. Now, because we're playing as a fully evolved Pokemon, the start of the game is super easy, so I figure no need to show the grind or anything of the sort. The rival battle, the optional one, and the bug catchers all extremely easy, especially once we get Hyper Fang. But will Hyper Fang be good enough to get through Brock here? Well, let's find out. He leads off with a level 12 Geodude. Obviously, we're faster. Hyper Fang's dealing some pretty great damage, and Tackle does, 2 damage to us? Hyper Fang, the follow-up, does miss. It does have 90 accuracy, so that's something that we're going to have to work around. And with Geodude super low on health, we can go ahead and finish it off, although it does critically hit us before we take it down, so we're going into the Onix fight with just over half health. And that may be a problem because, as you're about to see, Hyper Fang does way less to Onix. Onix follows up with a Rock Tomb that does 7 damage and drops our speed. What we really want are Hyper Fang flinches, but so far, no luck. Though I will take that lucky Rock Tomb miss. A little bit more damage with Hyper Fang, and gotta say, Onix really is not bringing his A-game today. As we bring Onix into red health, however, he does connect with Rock Tomb, bringing us to 9 health, and he is faster, goes for Bind, which is fine, I guess, because we're about to finish him off. Cool. That was a first try, although we only won on the first try because of those lucky misses. But hey, I ain't about to complain, especially because our journey to Cerulean City goes off without a hitch, as I'm sure you can imagine. And as we make our way over there, I'm thinking about who we're gonna face first. And by the time we arrive in Cerulean City, go behind the house, grab the rare candy, I decide to take a crack at Misty first because, hey, we're here, might as well try, right? And while we are inside of the gym, we'll go ahead and take a crack at the optional trainers as well. That's important because once you defeat a gym leader, you can no longer battle the other trainers inside if you didn't the first time. I don't mind going out of my way for a bit more experience points because Raticate is in the medium-fast level-up group, meaning that he gains experience points a bit slow at the start, but once the end of the game starts rolling around, he's going to be rolling in that XP dough. We might level slow at the start of the game, but with a move like Hyper Fang to take us through the earlier parts, we really don't have any trouble. Well, I don't know about Misty yet. She could be tough because Starmie is pretty hard. Staryu is not difficult, and we should one-shot it if we didn't miss with Hyper Fang. Luckily for us, we finally do hit with Hyper Fang, although we did take 16 damage off Water Pulse, so we are damaged going into the Starmie fight. We trade Hyper Fangs and Water Pulses, bringing each other super low. Thankfully, our follow-up Hyper Fang does not miss, making Misty a rather narrow first-try victory. This has me very confident for fighting Rival 2. Now, the only thing I am worried about in this fight is a Hyper Fang miss and Pidgeotto following up with Sand Attack. That can make that fight spiral out of control real fast. Well, here's to hoping this doesn't take too many tries. And as the fight commences and he sends out Pidgeotto, we do outspeed naturally, and that Hyper Fang's a one-shot. Oh yeah, we're in the clear here. We'll use Quick Attack against Rattata to guarantee priority it goes down. Tackle one-shots Aber, might as well use that at least once this run. Last up is Bulbasaur, far less bulky than Pidgeotto, so that's an obvious one-shot. One-shot sweeping Rival 2, well, that's rare, gonna enjoy that while it lasts. And because the next mandatory battle is Rival 3 aboard the SSN, and we're going to be much higher leveled, and he barely levels up at all, Really don't even gotta talk about this fight. So while this surprising victory plays out before you, let's go ahead and talk about the rules of this run in a little bit more detail, specifically going after the post-game. To access the post-game, you need to obtain the National Dex. That involves us catching 60 different Pokemon, and that's going to be great because that also means we can get the leftovers halfway through. We can do the first part of the Sevi Isles throughout the main story once we beat Blaine, but in order to continue, we have to beat the Elite Four and the Champion. And speaking of the Champion, he will have Venusaur. That is going to be the hardest for us to fight, although that's not very evident right now. Once we get to Lavender Tower, you're going to see why our rival is going to become very, very difficult later on. But before we can talk about that, what do you say we make a little swing over to Vermilion City's gym and take a crack at Lieutenant Surge, shall we? He leads off with Voltorb, who is pretty fast, and we one-shot with Quick Attack. And you'll notice that we're paralyzed. We got paralyzed off of static, off of the one required trainer's Pikachu here in this gym. That's actually not that bad for us, because through Guts, it will power up our attack by 50%, so using Quick Attack will guarantee priority, so we don't have to worry too much about the speed drop. A case in point, Quick Attack would not have one-shot Raichu without Guts. Pretty cool that we can put our ability to use this early into the run. Now, there is a particularly notorious hiker lurking within Rock Tunnel, and in Generation 3, he's not really that hard. In the Gen 1 games, Hiker Dudley, who is unnamed in the Gen 1 games, has 2 Geodudes and 1 Graveler, whom he likes to inexplicably detonate via self-destruct. Well, he doesn't really do that here in Gen 3, but we have Pursuit and Hyper Fang to get through this fight, so yeah, pretty easy stuff. Now, as we make our way to Celadon City, we're going straight for Giovanni, and you're going to notice that we're burned. Yeah, I just went and spammed Tail Whip on Growlithe to the east until we got hit by Ember. And by this point, we have Secret Power, which is just a little bit weaker than Hyper Fang, but it has 100 accuracy, and its secondary effect changes depending upon your location. No, I don't want Super Fang, thanks. Now, we don't one-shot the Kangaskhan, but of course, in typical Giovanni fashion, he's going for Tail Whip, when he very easily could have finished us off with Bite or Mega Punch. So I'll put off Erica for the time being, not that I think she's going to be difficult, but I'd rather get the whole Lavender Tower part of the story out of the way so that we can get access to some additional areas. And this is going to be a great opportunity to show why the rival having Bulbasaur, eventually Venusaur, is going to be hard. Not necessarily in this battle, because we're going to over-level his team by quite a bit. Now, as the Pidgeotto comes out, it's the last fight where this is Pidgeotto. Of course, we one-shot it, and we one-shot the Gyarados and the Growlithe coming up here. But you'll notice we got hit by Intimidate twice. We one-shot Kadabra with Quick Attack, and we don't one-shot Ivysaur. That might have looked easy, but we could have lost that fight if we got crit by Razor Leaf. And although we are powerful, sometimes being a bit too strong and just trying to brute force it can backfire. Case in point with Koga here, coughing not really a big deal. But with how bulky Muck is, if we do too much damage early on, Koga will heal, that's why I reset. So we'll try again. All we have to do is ration our damage output against Muck. And really strong start, critical hit takes out coughing, love it. With the Muck, we'll start with Quick Attack. He goes for Minimize, and thankfully our follow-up Secret Power doesn't miss, and we do just enough damage. Coughing number 2 is a one-shot with a non-critical Secret Power. Weezing tanks that pretty well. Hits us with Sludge, but it's not enough to take us out. The follow-up finishes him off, and we get the Soul Badge. Next up, we're going to circle on back to Saffron City. Given the choice between Rival 5 and Blaine down in Cinnabar, I'm going to take my chances with Rival 5. These past couple fights, you've seen the drawback to our gut strategy, being that if we don't hit hard enough, well, the enemy can hit us, and combined with our burn, we can go down real fast. And of course, 2 Intimidate users, which is going to be a constant problem going forward. A case in point, Pidgeot's no big deal, but we do just over a half to Gyarados. He retaliates with Dragon Rage. Really don't want to see that move. And despite 2 attack drops, we're still able to one-shot Growlithe. That's good. And next up is Alakazam, who is pretty dangerous, but also super frail. So despite our 2 attack drops, 1 Secret Power takes him down. Last up is Venusaur, doing about half. Yeah, there's Razor Leaf, we're done. So this next attempt is pretty funny, actually. It almost verbatim goes the same until we get to Venusaur, and we end up getting the Secret Power proc to paralyze him. Venusaur loses his turn to paralysis, but we're just too low on health. I got a good chuckle out of that, so we can just slap on an Oran Berry and take care of that little problem. So, retrying Rival 5 yet again, and in case you're wondering, yes, I can teach return. I do have the TM for it, but I'm very stingy with TMs. I like to save them for as late as possible, and for the time being, Secret Power is doing an alright job. This attempt is pretty much second verse same as the first, up until Venusaur here. Wow, we tanked that Razor Leaf a lot better than I thought we would. And thanks to our held Oran Berry, we have 8 hit points. That's just enough for us to follow up and take out Venusaur. And hey, critical hit for good measure. I'll take it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to drown Raticate in some healing potions outside of battle, and then take on Giovanni, which, well, down goes Nidorino, so yeah, it's going to be pretty easy. Nidoqueen's next, and we take her out with a critical Secret Power. We might have actually needed that crit. Nidoqueen is pretty bulky. And we're going to skip our last level up move, Endeavor. Don't need it whatsoever this run. And even with no attack drop, we don't one-shot Kangaskhan, take a Mega Punch for about 40 damage, but still no problem. Now, you may be wondering what our Hidden Power typing is. Instantly, we use it on Rhyhorn, and it's super effective and one-shots it. We got Steel-type Hidden Power, so not too bad. I don't know the base power for it, but hey, maybe we don't need Iron Tail. Now, before we fight Blaine, let's finish up Bizzo here in Saffron City and face Sabrina, and I mean, do I really have to commentate this fight? We're faster, our attack power is buffed, and her Pokemon have terrible physical defense. Yep, every single one of them is a very easy sweep. The only damage we take is from our burn. Well, we finally have to face Blaine, and I'm not looking forward to it because there's, well, 2 Intimidate users here, and this fight was actually really hard. You can see that I finally taught Return replacing Quick Attack, and we have new power points to use. Now, we've been hit by 1 Intimidate, and with Return, we're able to take out Growlithe, Ponyta, and Rapidash, so far it's pretty easy, right? Well, I can tell you, the only reason why we win this attempt is because we critically hit Arcanine. He does survive after 2 Intimidates, and Fire Blast does take us out. This took 3 tries. I just fished for a Fire Blast, missed 15% chance. I didn't want to put you guys through the attempts that took to lead up to that. Now, as we tackle a little bit of the Sevi Isles, just want to say that I actually haven't visited any Poke Center up to this point. What I've been doing is I've been taking dud moves and replacing it with Secret Power. That replenishes power points, and it's also a reason why I didn't want to teach Return immediately. I do have power point restoring items, but those are rare, and those are not replenishable. Alright then, enough of that. Next up, it's Giovanni time. And thanks to Hidden Power Steel, Rhyhorn is an easy one-shot. Next, he sends out Nidoqueen. That's an interesting choice. Not that it matters. Return one-shots. Bye-bye. One-shotting Nidoqueen means that we're going to one-shot Nidoking. Dugtrio is next. Obviously a one-shot. It's super frail. And next is his final Rhyhorn, which we have Steel-type Hidden Power. No big deal. Now, if I didn't have Hidden Power, I would have just invested earlier in Iron Tail, and it would have just gone the same. But better, because Iron Tail is stronger. And I gotta say, I'm not trying to go fast or anything, but clocking in our time here at 5 hours, 12 minutes, that's not bad. And, well, our rival's Pidgeot would be problematic with Feather Dance if we weren't faster. Easy one-shot. Out comes Rhyhorn. We saw what happened to Giovanni's 2 Rhyhorn. Yeah, bye. Next up is Gyarados, and we don't one-shot with Return. Oh boy. Gyarados Hydro Pump deals 38 damage. Not bad. Next up is Growlithe, whom we do one-shot. He's gonna be a real problem in the final battle once he becomes Arcanine. He's just saving up that grudge, getting his revenge already. Alakazam is, of course, a one-shot. And here you go. Not even half to Venusaur. Yeah, we get finished off real easy. And even if Razor Leaf missed, the burn damage would have taken us out. So the next attempt goes the same up until Gyarados, who inexplicably uses Leer. And can take them on out of Gen 1, but you can't take the Gen 1 out of the Pokemon. And because we have better health this time, Venusaur goes for Growth. Well, that's going to do you a lot of good. Thankfully, on our follow-up return, we don't get a low damage range. It's just enough to take out the Venusaur. Yeah, not gonna lie, I'm a little bit concerned about the champion fight. Now, while I am concerned about the champion fight itself, most of the Elite Four I don't think are going to be too bad. Lorelei shouldn't be hard. Bruno, he might be. We are normal type, and he's not too bad here in Gen 3. We'll have Shadow Ball for Agatha, although her Arbok does have Intimidate, so we'll have to be careful with that too. And hey, speaking of Intimidate, Lance's Gyarados, whom he leads off with, also has Intimidate. That could be problematic. You have no idea how much I wish White Herb was in this game. That would alleviate that problem with Gyarados immediately. And I mean, White Herb is a single-use item, so I'd have to plan out which battle I specifically want to use it in. If there's any battle I'd want to put that to use in, it would be the Lance fight. Because for the champion, it's not going to matter all that much, because we're still going to have 2 Intimidate users to deal with. But that's all semantics and wishful thinking and pointless brainstorming, because White Herb is not in Fire Red Leaf Green unless you trade for it, and the person who trades it to you, the Pokemon, has to be holding it. Lorelei leads off with Dewgong, and Dewgong can potentially waste its turn with Safeguard, and it doesn't here, unfortunately. I go for a bit of a Hail Mary with Tail Whip. It does decent damage with Surf, and we take it out with Return for sure with that Tail Whip. Okay, does quite a bit of Cloyster's health and damage. And here's where things take a bit of a turn. Cloyster tanks that pretty well, and Cloyster in Gen 3 loves spamming Protect, and, well, we have Burn, so that's not good for us. And although we're able to get by the Cloyster, unfortunately, Shadow Ball does not one-shot Slowbro, and it takes us out with Surf. Well, I thought we'd get farther than that on our first try. And you'll see in this next attempt here, turns out I was right to Tail Whip Dewgong because we didn't one-shot it. I mean, yeah, Lorelei healed it, and then we got the damage range, but yeah. And Cloyster, again, tanks that real well, sets up Hail, does Protect, so we're taking Hail damage and Burn damage before we take out the Cloyster eventually, leaving us at 73 health. That's not great. And Return does do a bit more damage to Slowbro, but no dice. And it's here where I'm like, you know what, let's go ahead and pop those rare candies, get us up to level 70. I just edited over to the last one for your convenience. Okay, we're a bit powered up, let's give it another try. Naturally, Dewgong is a one-shot. Cloyster still tanks that, but with just a speck of health. Okay, then we're doing that much damage to Cloyster. The rest of this team should be no problem. I decided to use Tail Whip just for safety, and turns out that it pays off. Cloyster didn't spam Protect, I'm surprised by that. More importantly, Slowbro is a one-shot. That Hail damage might have helped, too. Lapras goes down in one hit, and last is Jinx, who's obviously going to be a one-shot, being the frailest member of Lorelei's team. Now, normally Bruno would be a bit of an obstacle for us, but we do have Steel-type Hidden Power for his Onix, so maybe this will go okay? Still a bit worried about his fighting types, though, because I know for a fact that Hitmonchan has Mach Punch, and of course Machamp has Cross Chop, so they all gotta be one-shots. And Onix is not a one-shot, oh boy. Well, after healing, turns out that that's a damage range. That's not good. Thankfully, the other members of his team were one-shots, but that Onix not being a one-shot, the last one, yeah. As for Agatha, Gengar and Golbat are one-shots, but thanks to Intimidate, Arbok isn't. Oh boy, and I ran out of returns. I should have used a PowerPoint restoring item there. Thanks to Screech, Arbok destroys us with Sludge Bomb. Okay, so we know that the first 2 Elite Four members at this stage aren't too bad to deal with. Lorelei's pretty easy, and although we don't always one-shot Bruno's second Onix, the rest of his team isn't really anything to write home about, thankfully. And, you know, I feel like I can eschew a bit of my frugalness, you know, to win the challenge, or at least this part of it. That was a real silly mistake on my behalf there. But hey, mistakes are made, that's how you learn. This time, not gonna make that mistake. And just like before, Gengar is a one-shot with Shadow Ball. It has terrible defense, and we're being powered up by Guts, and it's physical in Gen 3. Also, Golbat's gone. Arbok and I trade Screech and Tail Whip perfectly fine, because now Arbok's gonna be a one-shot. Out comes Gengar number 2, despite Intimidate, Shadow Ball does one-shot it. And last but certainly not least, well, certainly least in this case, is Haunter, obviously a one-shot with Shadow Ball. Now, I am pretty nervous about Lance. Gyarados does have Intimidate. We'll have to deal with that the entire fight, so, well, let's give it a shot. I know Return won't one-shot, so might as well go for Tail Whip, take a Dragon Rage, and our follow-up Return does take out the Gyarados. Good start. And Aerodactyl's defense isn't the best, so a Hidden Power Steal should one-shot it. Uh-oh. Well, at least Scary Face missed, and Lance healing is actually even worse because we're taking constant damage. I gotta say, Tail Whip's been pretty useful, too. And unfortunately, Dragonite is next. We deal about 3/4 to it, it looks like. Maybe 2/3, but doesn't matter. Hyper Beam easily able to finish us. And it's right around this point I realized just how much I messed up by not getting Iron Tail. Now, Iron Tail is 100 base power, 75 accuracy, and if I didn't have Hidden Power Steel, I would have it despite the 1 in 4 chance to miss, because it is great coverage, especially with a Guts user. But honestly, the real issue was just my placing too much faith in Guts. I was very overconfident with it by this point. I mean, Raticate has been bulldozing this game, certainly from the start, when the start of the game is super easy for a Pokemon like this. But Guts was able to take this Pokemon far and wide, much farther than it would be normally. But because I also decided to start filling up our Pokédex, I'm like, okay, you know what? Steel-type Hidden Power should be okay, at least for the main story. Should take care of Verno's Onix, it should take care of Aerodactyl. Nope. And the reason why I'm continuing to try at this point is I'm like, okay, you know, we can get Aerodactyl to miss with Scary Face, or Dragonite can miss Hyper Beam, maybe it'll go for Safeguard or something like that. But I would need the craziest string of luck to get by this fight at this point, and that's entirely because, well, I was overconfident about Hidden Power, and should have gotten Iron Tail. I should have put off getting the National Dex until, well, I beat the game. And the problem with that was that I was just haphazardly buying Ultra Balls and throwing them at stuff. I added the Legendaries to our Pokédex roster because, of course, I had to, right? You know, blend all of that in this unhealthy mix of trying this fight over and over and over again in vain. And another reason why I don't want to just reset and lose here is because I've used Power Point restoring items, and I kinda don't want to lose those, but at this rate, it's looking like I'm gonna have to. It's one of those things that you watch in editing, and it's really frustrating, especially because in-game I had figured out that I should go back in, just get Iron Tail, grind for a little bit or something. And it's not like I can't get burned again, too, because that's why I have Tail Whip, is to go to Cinnabar, where Growlithe is, and just spam Tail Whip until I get burned off of Ember or Flame Wheel. But, you know, persistence does ultimately pay off because, well, eventually we do get this super lucky attempt here, which I'm not terribly proud of, but at the time I was still in that brute force it mindset, thinking I'll just get Iron Tail in the post-game. Gyarados, same as usual, Tail Whip return. We crit Aerodactyl with Hidden Power. Oh, what's that? You like critical hits? Well, we're gonna double up on that. Critical hit one-shots Dragonite. And obviously, the two remaining Dragonair, the weakest members of his team, easy one-shots with return. And you know what I didn't realize at the time because I was so laser-focused? The champion has a Rhydon. If we didn't one-shot Aerodactyl, we're not gonna one-shot that thing either. But you know what? We're here now. Let's go ahead and take on the champion and see what he's made of. I have a pretty good idea of what's gonna be obstructing us here. Now, he does lead off with Pidgeot, which can be annoying, but we are faster. It's never gonna be a problem. And that's good because Pidgeot here has Feather Dance and Sand Attack. Next up is Alakazam. We already know he's gonna be a one-shot. He's basically an XP snack at this point. And Hidden Power still does okay damage to Rhydon. He hits us with Scary Face. Could have gone for Rock Tomb and missed. That would have been cool. Thanks to that speed drop, we're now slower than Gyarados, who hits us with Hydro Pump. We deal about 3/4 with Return. And there's Thrash, and we're done. And I decided to take a few cracks at this fight because I'm like, you know what? We're at the champion. We're here. We can take this guy out. Nah, not even close. You know what the bad thing is about this fight is that so far we haven't even made it to Arcanine. We haven't been hit by Intimidate for a second time. His team is just really strong. And although Guts has been amazing, it does have its limits, and we're really starting to see that rear its ugly head here. Well, that and the fact that if I had Iron Tail, I would be one-shotting Rhydon. But eventually we will end up making it to Arcanine through having a bit of luck on our side, and I'm sure you know how that's gonna go by that point because we are just battered and beaten. The burn is taking away our health. Oh, and because of the speed drop in this sped up run here, we're slower. Flamethrower, bye. So I did it. I went back, you know, foregoing my Power Point restoring item, which is fine, really, because we do need to get Iron Tail. And, you know, I think that parts like this are very important to keep in because it goes to show that, you know, you're doing the challenge and, you know, mistakes are made along the way. And clearly, I mean, Guts is awesome. There's no denying that. If anything, it was me who was at fault for putting a bit too much faith in it, as well as, you know, the Steel-type Hidden Power, not to be a broken record. But we don't gotta worry about that anymore because we now have Iron Tail. I do decide to try with Hidden Power one more time just because we are a bit higher level, but no dice. Okay, so now we're going to equip Iron Tail and try out Lance. This should be pretty easy now. Well, easier. We're still going to tail up Gyarados on turn 1. He hits us with Bite for about 22 damage. Definitely take that over Dragon Rage. Alright, next up is Aerodactyl. Iron Tail does not miss. There we go, baby. One shot. And that's important because check out what Dragonite does. Because of our health, he went for Safeguard. The Citrus Berry took him out of healing range, and we finish him off. And of course, the two Dragonairs, second verse same as the first. And since we know how Pidgeot and Alakazam go with the champion, gonna speed past them. Obviously, they're gonna be one-shots with Return. We are a little bit stronger now. But is Rhydon a one-shot with Iron Tail? That is a bold claim. Yes, he is. Now, thanks to Intimidate, Gyarados is still quite an obstacle. We do a lot more damage to him this time, and Hydro Pump also hits us real hard. But unfortunately, that's going to loop the champion into healing it. Fear not, though, we have a solution, and that's on turn 1 to hit Gyarados with Shadow Ball. Tail Whip's not going to be enough. But out comes Arcanine, we deal about half, and he takes us out the Flamethrower. Now you can see why 2 Intimidate users is bad for us, why Venusaur is the hardest for us to fight. It's not even Venusaur, it's just Gyarados and Arcanine, really. And I mean, heck, even Venusaur isn't going to be that easy, because by the time we make it to Venusaur, we're going to have super low health, and although Venusaur only has one attacking move in Solar Beam, if we don't take him out in 2 hits, well, that Solar Beam charge time's not going to amount to much, because we're going to be Dunyan Rings, baby. And as Gyarados comes out, I just can't help myself. Gotta go for Tail Whip. We do take a Hydro Pump, and we do one-shot with Return. Next up is Arcanine, and we get a super lucky critical hit. Love to see that. And Venusaur comes out, and we get another critical hit. Oh, man. Wow. Man, that champion fight was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I mean, forget that. Lance was harder than I thought he was going to be. I mean, I already went on my little tangent about that one. And normally the run would be over here, but it's not over yet because, as I said, and it's also in the video's title, we're going to try and tackle the post-game rematches with Raticate. So I talked about how to access the post-game Sevials earlier on, but let's go ahead and recap. We need 60 Pokemon. That'll get us the National Pokédex. That's why I didn't have enough money to buy Iron Tail, because I just kind of wanted to get it over with. That was very silly of me. I'm never going to do that again at one of these challenges. This video has taught me very, very well for future Fire Red content, because most of my Fire Red content is going to include the post-game. Said most, not all. Keep that in mind. We also have to complete the first part of the Sevials, which we already did after we beat Blaine. And we have to beat the Elite Four and the Champion, which we did. I wasn't very happy with my initial performance, but you know what? Improvements were made, and we got through. A little lucky at the end, but that's okay. We're here now. And you'll notice something a little interesting about the post-game. For those of you who might not know, Moltres in Generation 1, you can find him in Victory Road. That's where you can catch him. Here in Fire Red Leaf Green, he's in the Sevials, and because I did catch Zapdos and Articuno to add to our Pokédex for some style points, of course I have to get Moltres. It's also my favorite of the 3 legendary birds, so we're definitely going to have that. I might start flying around with this guy. And you'll notice that our Raticate is no longer burned. And it just feels weird seeing him like that, you know? But we don't really need Guts for the post-game because we are hilariously over-leveled for the little bits of story that are here in the Sevials. And the Sevials story is, in a nutshell, Lorelei is missing from the Elite Four, so you can't just go battle her and the rest of the Elite Four and the Champions rematches teams immediately. She's gone to the Sevials. Apparently that's where she's from. That's cool. And it's a good thing that she is there, because between us and her, we find out that Team Rocket is up to no good, as they always are. And I thought that Team Rocket's involvement with the Sevials was kind of cool. It feels like a nice little tie-in to the story for the second generation for what goes down in Johto. And of course, we have to help out Bill's buddy get these 2 items called Ruby and Sapphire. I don't know where I've heard those names before. And mechanically, that would allow the player to trade with a Hoenn game. So, like, if you had Ruby and I had Fire Red, and I wanted your Combuskin and you wanted my Charmeleon, cool, we can now trade them in the post-game. Isn't that neat? And funny enough, evolutions like Crobat are locked behind the post-game as well. If memory serves, you do need the National Dex to unlock Pokemon like Crobat. But you want to see something that was really cool here on my adventures in the Sevials? Well, we're going to rewind a little bit. You'll see that my level's a bit lower. I actually encountered a shiny unknown. I haven't seen a shiny Pokemon in like a little over 2 years. The last time I saw one was a shiny Machop on this Emerald ROM hack where it was all double battles. It was pretty cool. Now, I don't really have any reason to be over here in this part of the Sevials. I was just going around exploring, having fun, because Fire Red Leaf Green's postgame is really fun. I feel like the Sevials perfectly reflects how sandboxious Kanto is. It's always a blast going through here. Gonna be enjoying these in future Fire Red Leaf Green runs. Sadly, I cannot use our shiny unknown. He's just going in the box. But yeah, that's enough of that. Let's get back to the juicy bits here. But I also didn't want to segue immediately on over because it would feel kind of like a whiplash for content because you gotta go through a fair bit to unlock the post-game rematches. Now, unfortunately for Lorelei, even though we were broing out and taking out Team Rocket together, we do have to face off with her. But unfortunately for her, our Raticate is a lot more powerful now. And that was just me kind of going through trainers and being part of the medium-fast level-up group. Yeah, we just one-shot swept her whole team with Facade Guts. And for some reason, she has Piloswine instead of Slowbro, which is one of her best Pokemon. Well, she's the expert, not me. Now, Bruno has 2 Steelix, so I had this bright idea, right? Let's teach Sunny Day and Fire Blast so we can take out the Steelix because their special defense is much lower. Only to find out that Raticate can't learn Fire Blast. Now, I'm sure that doesn't surprise you to hear, but taking a look at our moves here, I was like, oh man, Raticate's coverage. I remember there being a lot of stuff on there. Nope. Well, I guess we'll see how much damage Facade does. He leads off with a level 65 Steelix and, whoa, that's not bad. That's not bad. Well, turns out we leveled up just enough to be able to potentially two-shot Steelix. Potentially. Now, with Guts Facade, obviously things like Machamp, Hitmonlee, and Hitmonchan are going to be one-shots, and just so you know, Facade is locked behind the postgame. That's why I wasn't using it in the main story. You have to go through some of the Sevials to get it. And man, that's good damage against Steelix, and I mean, he hits us with Iron Tail, and the burn damage does finish us off. Well, I see a path to victory here, and I'm not gonna lie, it's extremely cathartic to just sweep Lorelei under the rug like that, considering how hard she was when we first got to the Elite Four. Okay, Steelix does hit us with Rock Tomb. Would have preferred that to miss. Or, you know, maybe I had nothing to worry about because we're still faster than the other 3. That's good. But Steelix survives, and he takes us out very easily with Earthquake. And now, we need Steelix to miss with Rock Tomb and Iron Tail and, you know, not go for Earthquake. But hey, time will tell if that happens, I guess. And yeah, those damage ranges, yeah, we're gonna always two-shot Steelix and nice. Miss? Okay, yeah, we're good. And we know this tidbit already. Hitmonchan, Machamp, and Hitmonlee are all one-shots with Facade. God, that's so satisfying. It's kind of interesting to think that I didn't intend to level up this much, but we actually needed to for this fight. Alright, moment of truth. We hit with Facade, and Iron Tail misses. We're good. We got this. Woohoo! Yeah, baby. Love it. And, well, I don't know about you, but I have the distinct impression that Agatha is going to be extremely easy. The best part, Arbok's Intimidate doesn't matter. Not with Facade, it doesn't. Agatha does swap Haunter for Mischievous, the better choice in my opinion, but doesn't really matter. Okay, Lance is up next. We know how hard he was before, so let's give it a shot. Despite Intimidate, Facade does one-shot Gyarados. Kingdra, you're awesome, but you're a one-shot. Next up is the first Dragonite, and it too is a one-shot with Facade. I can't tell you how amazing this feels. There's such catharsis flowing through my veins right now. Iron Tail one-shots Aerodactyl. Oh, what's that? Level 72 Dragonite? Man, get out of here. You don't matter. The Champions team is actually really good. He does lead off with Heracross over Pidgeot. And that could mess us up pretty well, but we're faster, and yep, there's Facade, one shot, bye-bye. There's Alakazam. Yeah, we've seen that bit already. Just get out of here. Let's focus on other Pokemon. Tyranitar does set up Sandstorm, but no big deal. Iron Tail takes it out. The Gyarados that gave us so much trouble in the original champion battle, one shot with Facade. And just like in the first champion battle, Arcanine goes down to a critical Facade. Last but not least is Venusaur, and one Facade, not critical, and it's done. Man, that was a wild run. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that Lance and the champion from the main story would be more difficult than the rematches. But that's also because Fasada's locked behind the post-game. So it turns out, in order to kick as much butt with Raticate as you can, you gotta go to the Sevi Isles, drop off some lemonade at an offering. The guy gives you the TM for Facade. That's like Raticate's Ultra Divine Water. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you at the next run. Have a good one.